history is littered with the wrecks of men who presumed without the grace of God to prophesy or to predict. But this work, like beautiful wine, has been aging for 40 to 50 years. It has been spreading seed throughout the nation. Meanwhile, the nation and the world and the church have been getting worse and worse and worse. There is almost a cross graph, you know, our work, the need for it constantly going up, and the apparentness of that need due to the fact of the worsening of the situation. Someone mentioned to me yesterday, just yesterday, and I remember at the time, you all know that, or you may have heard of that special vision that Pope Leo XIII was granted in the 1880s when he was Pope, of that conversation between Satan and our Lord, that he was bragging, much the way he bragged that he would be able to seduce Job away from the true faith, that the devil said he could destroy the church. And our Lord said, you cannot. And he said, if I just had enough power, I could. And the Lord said, well, take whatever power you need. And we have witnessed the rise of that power and the confusion in the minds of Catholics throughout the world in our day. And I think that people are now beginning to wake up. I remember with what anticipation Brother Francis awaited the year 1984 and how many times we heard from him, something is happening. There is going to be soon a new spirit. And without question, since 1984, since we have moved to Richmond here in 1989, one of the first things that happened after that was we began, you have to look for these signs not only in the world at large, but in your own life, in your own circle. I have seen tremendous growth and tremendous strides taken by this order in the last 15 years. And I predict that in the very near future, we're going to see astronomical growth in our work. I'm hoping very much that we will have bishops calling upon us at some point to help them out. One of the things that Brother has always said is that we witness how bad things are in the church, and there's always a temptation to despair, but that we can never do that. And that the big point of despair for so many Catholics today is they look and they see the decay in the hierarchy, even to the very tops of the church. And they say, how will this ever be repaired? Well, these people don't have faith in God. They have knowledge of God, but they do not have the faith that God is still in command and control of his church. That if people just do one thing, and that is decide in their heart to respond to grace, that God then becomes omnipotent through those people, especially in his church, and that he can change overnight, make such dramatic changes that the church can be restored with surprising rapidity. This should always be our constant prayer and our constant hope and our constant joy that this is going to happen. And we should hope and pray that we're going to see it in our lifetime. I think, I'm hoping, I'm praying that I will see the consecration of Russia before I pass from this life. Now, if you look at things statistically, that may be within the next 20 to 30 years. That could bring us sometime close to the year 2025. If we make the year 2017, that will be 100 years from the date of Our Lady's apparition at Fatima. Now, I know that the King of France lost his head shortly after The 100 years that was given France was up. But the church is not going to lose her head. We may lose a vicar or two. But the head of the church is Christ. And we have been promised that Russia will be consecrated and Russia will be converted. And I have every hope, although we've never had that promise so explicitly, I feel in my heart that this nation will one day be converted. Now, it's quite possible that Russia will be converted first. And if she is, I think that the bishops will then be willing to unleash us with their blessing upon this nation. When we are unleashed with the blessing of the bishops and their help and assistance, the type of evangelizing work that this nation will require is already designed. It's designed by the founders of the Slaves of the Immaculate Heart of Mary and those who have carried on the work for all these years. It only took our Lord 3 years to train his disciples to make them apostles. Brother Francis says we need 4. Well, I think that that is the first order of every slave of the Immaculate Heart of Mary, is to train yourself to be an apostle to this nation. We have a plan for it. We say we want to convert this nation. We have to be ready with our sandals, our feet shod, our swords girded. And we still, although we are not going to be like the army sweeping across the nation that we will be when we get the full blessing and backing of the church, until that time, we have to be doing that work as if we do have their full blessing and backing, because in reality, we do. That is because it is the duty of every Christian from the mouth of our Lord himself to go forth and convert all nations. It's only when we can have the current occupants of the chairs, the seats of power in this church, backing our work, that it will get the full depth of its effectiveness. We need to be always at the service of the church. And if the church is not wielding the sword yet, don't worry, the church will. But we must be ready, and we must be that sword. And that sword is the dogma. There is no salvation outside the church. And it is also the method of teaching and learning and praying and evangelizing that Father Feeney and the Slaves of the Immaculate Heart of Mary have. That esprit de corps, that sensus communis of our work, it's our responsibility to grow that in ourselves, in the immediate people we can influence, and to keep working on that spirit and to keep it growing. And believe me, we will become like that snowball rolling down the hill. It is not long before the work of this order begins to have an impact. You know, you look at something like Mother Angelica, all right? She has a television station, she has radio stations, she has supposedly a tremendous impact throughout the nation. Lots of people give her money to do things. She's on the TV all the time. And yet, I do not see the wave of conversions from that work that you are going to see from our work, or I think that have already seen from our work. We do not have anywhere near the money or the power or the influence, at least as the world judges it. But I can tell you right now that we truly have far more influence than Mother Teresa, than Mother Angelica, because we have the solution, and she does not yet know it. So, I'm going to turn you over now. I think we're going to take a